Tonight, 3 true stories, told quietly over steady rain. A missing child alert that shouldn't exist, an app that knows too much, and a second line you were never meant to cross. Get comfortable, and let the rain carry the story. The first thing that made it feel like something not human was how quickly the city obeyed. My phone buzzed at 9:14 p.m. with the hard, metallic tone of an emergency alert, the kind of sound designed to bypass your judgment and go straight into your spine. Amber Alert. Missing child, last seen 2052. Location, East River District. Suspect vehicle, white van. If seen, call 911. A photo loaded beneath it, a little boy, maybe 4. Round cheeks. Big eyes. The kind of face that makes your throat tighten even if you've never met him. I stared at the screen for too long. Then I went to the kitchen window and looked down at the street like I expected the alert to have changed reality outside. Nothing looked different. Parked cars. A couple walking a dog. A bus sighing at the corner. Warm windows stacked like squares. Normal. That's why it worked. Normal is a soft blanket. People wrap themselves in it while predators move. My building was the kind people called secure. Key fob entry. Lobby camera. A doorbell camera on my own unit because I'd gotten tired of parcels going missing. A resident group chat full of complaints about the elevator smelling like fried food. I lived alone on the 5th floor. I liked the quiet. I liked the predictability. At 9:16 p.m., my buzzer rang. Not a long press. 2 short taps. I froze. 2 short taps isn't how delivery people buzz. It's how someone buzzes when they know you're home and they want to sound official without sounding aggressive. I walked to the intercom panel by my door and didn't answer. 2 short taps again. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Don't ignore it. He's downstairs. My mouth went dry. He could only mean one thing with the Amber Alert still glowing on my screen. My heart did something strange. It didn't race. It slowed, as if my body was trying to reduce mistakes. I felt that sick, cold mix of fear and responsibility, like if I did the wrong thing, I'd become the kind of person who walked past a crying child. The intercom clicked, without me touching it. A man's voice came through, low and urgent. "Please," he said. "Open the door. I found the kid. He's scared. He won't come into the lobby." I didn't speak. He continued quickly, as if he'd rehearsed the story and didn't want to lose momentum. "He keeps asking for his mom. I don't know what to do. You're the closest unit with lights on. Can you just come to the stairs? Please. Just to the stairs." My eyes flicked automatically to my peephole. Then I remembered the text, "Do not ignore it. He's downstairs." They wanted me to do something simple and moral and immediate, step into the hallway. My phone buzzed again. "If you don't help, that's on you." That line wasn't a threat. It was a hook. It tried to turn fear into shame, and shame into motion. I swallowed and pressed the intercom button, keeping my voice flat. "Where are you?" I asked. "South stairwell," the man said instantly. "Side entrance." "He's sitting on the steps. He's shaking." "Please. Call the police," I said. A pause, tiny, but sharp enough to catch. "I tried," he said, urgency forced into his voice. "Lines are jammed because of the alert. Please, just come down. You can help me keep him calm." My phone buzzed. "Don't call. Come down." I stepped away from the intercom. The air in my apartment felt thicker, as if the walls were listening. I looked at the Amber Alert photo again and tried to separate my emotions from my logic. If you find a missing child, you don't recruit a stranger in a hallway. You call the police and you stay visible. You don't hide in a stairwell. You don't push someone else to take responsibility. Unless the child isn't real. Or the child is real, but the person calling me doesn't want police arriving before they're ready. My fingers hovered over my door lock. Then I did the one thing that felt safe. I opened my building group chat and started typing. Anyone else getting intercom calls about the Amber Alert child? Before I could hit send, my screen flickered. The draft vanished. The chat refreshed as if my message had never existed. It could have been a glitch. But it didn't feel like one. My buzzer rang again, longer now. Impatient. And then I heard a sound that made my skin crawl, something faint in the hallway outside my door, like a soft scrape against wood. Not a knock. Not footsteps. Something closer. A hand. Tape. A thin tool sliding. I backed away from the door without turning my back to it. I went to the kitchen and grabbed the heaviest thing within reach, a metal flashlight I kept for power cuts. My phone buzzed with a new notification. Amber Alert update. Suspect may attempt to seek help. Do not open doors for strangers. Call 911. For a moment, relief hit so hard I almost laughed. The city knew. The system was warning people not to fall for exactly what was happening to me. Then the update vanished. The screen returned to the original alert as if the update had never existed. My stomach twisted. Either the alert system was glitching in a very specific way, or someone was manipulating what I saw to keep me uncertain. The intercom clicked again. I can hear you moving, the man said softly. Please. Don't make this complicated. There is no world where an intercom lets you hear someone moving in their apartment. Unless the voice wasn't coming from the intercom. Unless the voice belonged to someone who could hear me through something else. A smart speaker. A camera. A hacked baby monitor from a neighbor. A device on my network. The thought made my apartment feel suddenly unfamiliar, like it was full of objects that could betray me if asked. My phone rang. No caller ID. I answered without speaking. A child's voice came through, small, shaky, like it was trying not to cry. Help me, it whispered. My stomach dropped so hard I felt dizzy. A second later, a man's voice, calm and close, as if he was right beside the child. He won't stop crying, the man said. You're going to make him suffer if you keep being stubborn. The child sobbed once, short, sharp, and then there was a muffled shift, like a hand covering the mouthpiece. My whole body wanted to move toward the door. Not to be brave, because my brain was screaming, child. Now. That's why they used the voice. They didn't need to convince me with facts. They needed to hijack instinct. I forced words out through a throat that felt too tight. If you have a child, I said, voice shaking, you call the police. You don't call a stranger in an apartment. Silence. Then the man laughed, quiet and disappointed. You're not as soft as we hoped, he said. The call ended. My buzzer stopped. The building went quiet in a way that felt staged, like a theater holding its breath. Then I heard the elevator, a soft ding far down the corridor, doors opening, slow footsteps on carpet. Coming toward my unit. My phone buzzed. Open. Now. We're in uniform. Uniform. A costume. My hand tightened around the flashlight. I moved to the kitchen window again and angled my body so I could see the entrance area without being seen easily myself. Down by the lobby doors, two people stood under the awning. One wore a dark jacket with a reflective stripe. The other, at a glance, looked like police. At a glance is what they rely on at night. The uniformed person looked up at the building, raised a hand, and waved slowly. Friendly. Reassuring. Rehearsed. My phone buzzed again. Last chance to be a good person. My mouth went dry. Because it was working, not in my mind, but in my body. It was making my hesitation feel like cruelty. That's when I did the one thing that broke the spell. I involved another human being who wasn't inside my fear. I called Tomas, my neighbor across the hall. He'd once mentioned he used to work night security. He knew what real uniforms looked like. He'd also know if anyone else had been approached. He answered groggily. "Hello?" "Tomas," I whispered, "don't open your door. There are two people outside pretending they have the Amber Child. Did you get the alert?" A pause. Then his voice sharpened. "Yeah. Why?" "They're using it," I said. "They're trying doors." Tomas didn't hesitate. "Stay inside," he said. "I'm calling police." The moment he said it, my phone buzzed. "You just made it loud." Footsteps in the corridor stopped right outside my door. 3 slow taps. Then a voice, right outside, muffled but close. "Police," it said calmly. "Open the door." I didn't answer. The voice continued, almost bored. "We received a report you may be sheltering the missing child. We need to verify." My blood turned to ice. They were reversing the story now. Not, "Help the child." Now it was, "You are the suspect." That's how you force compliance. You don't ask for help, you accuse. You make people open doors to clear their names. I backed away from the door and went into the bathroom. I locked it. I turned off the light and sat on the floor with my back against the tub, phone clenched hard enough that my fingers ached. The knocking stopped. Then the sound changed. A soft click at my door lock, like a tool being inserted into the cylinder or the latch being tested. Someone trying to open quietly. Like they had time. My phone buzzed again. "We can do this clean or messy." I held my breath. The only sound was my own pulse in my ears. Then my door camera chirped, its activation sound, the same one I heard when deliveries arrived. A bright, artificial voice came through the camera speaker, as if my own front door had become an announcer. "Package delivery," it said. Then it repeated, with a slight stutter, like a device malfunctioning. "Package, delivery, for unit." It sounded like a glitch. Like a haunted machine. I realized, sickly, what it was. They were making my devices behave strangely to push me toward the supernatural explanation. Because if it's the building acting weird, you freeze. If it's a person using the building, you fight back. A minute later, sirens rose outside, real ones, loud and ugly, not the distant kind that might be imagined. Boots in the corridor. Radios crackling. A hard voice that didn't sound like a script. "Police. Step out. Now." The police voice at my door disappeared. Footsteps ran down the hall toward the stairwell, fast, panicked. Not the controlled walk of someone in authority. Then a slam, the stairwell door, heavy. A new knock, rapid, practical, human. "Ma'am," a man shouted. "Police. If you're inside, call out." "I'm in the bathroom." I shouted back, voice breaking. "Stay there," he yelled. "We're coming to you." I waited, shaking, until I heard the real bolt turn and my front door open. Then the officer came to the bathroom, knocked once, and said, "Open up." I opened it and saw a uniform close enough to see the details, body cam, radio, the tired tension around the eyes. "Real. You okay?" he asked. I nodded, trying to breathe. "They said I was sheltering the child," I whispered. His expression hardened. "We've got multiple calls tonight," he said. "Same pattern. Someone's exploiting the alert to pressure residents into opening doors." In the living room, another officer was examining my door camera. "Your camera's been accessed," she said, jaw tight. "Building network or weak credentials. We'll figure it out." I swallowed. "The child voice," I said. "On the phone. Was that him?" The officer looked at me carefully, choosing words like they were fragile. "We don't know," he said. "It could be a recording. It could be someone else's child. It could be," he stopped. "But this group uses leverage. They use sound. They use shame. They swept the stairwell. The suspects were gone. They'd vanished the way organized people vanish, not into darkness, but into exits they'd already mapped." Then one officer crouched near my door and held up something he'd found tucked against the baseboard in the hallway. A printed flyer, folded once. It used the Amber Alert photo, cropped and degraded like it had been screenshot and printed quickly. Under it: "Compliance test, Phase 2. Target response, open door within 90 seconds. Failure response, escalate to accusation." There was more, smaller text in the corner. "Unit notes. Alone occupant likely. Camera present. Balcony access. Neighbor contact risk." They had profiled my habits. Not from magic. From observation. From data. From the way people live predictably in buildings full of systems. The officer's face tightened. "This wasn't about the child," he said. I felt sick. "But the child is real," I whispered, looking at my phone. "Yes," he said quietly. "And that's what makes this worse. Someone out there is missing. And these people used that tragedy like a skeleton key." He asked me to stay elsewhere for the night, and I agreed because my apartment didn't feel like mine anymore. It felt like a room in a larger machine. As I packed a bag, my phone buzzed one last time. "Unknown number. Good job. You didn't open. We prefer the ones who do." I showed it to the officer. He nodded grimly, took a photo, and said, "They're selecting." "Selecting what?" I asked. He looked toward the stairwell as if he could see the whole pattern in the concrete. "Buildings," he said. "People. Weak points. Who obeys authority. Who fears shame. Who opens the door to prove they're a good person." I left with my bag and walked down the corridor under fluorescent lights that suddenly seemed too bright, too clinical. Halfway to the elevator, I noticed something new taped to the wall near the fire exit, almost invisible unless you knew to look. A small sticker with a QR code. "Amber information check-in. Scan to confirm you have not seen the child." It was another hook. Another way to get someone to interact, to identify themselves, to give away a device, a location, a willingness. The officer saw it too. He peeled it off with a gloved hand and dropped it into an evidence bag. "Not a ghost," he muttered. "No," I said, voice thin. "Just people." Outside, the city still looked normal. Cars still moved. Windows still glowed. And somewhere, a real missing child was still missing, while a separate group used the idea of him to open doors that should never open. That's why it felt supernatural. Because it made the whole city feel like it was complicit, like the alert tone itself was part of the trap. But it wasn't the city. It was a few human beings who understood that the fastest way into a home isn't violence. It's an instruction that makes you feel guilty for hesitating. The first time it felt like something supernatural, it was because it was too coordinated. A sound at the door, a message on my phone, a light flicker in the hallway, everything arriving in the right order, like the building itself was reacting to me. The kind of sequence that makes your brain reach for ghosts because ghosts are easier than admitting a person planned your fear minute by minute. It started at 9:52 p.m. on a Wednesday. I wasn't babysitting. I wasn't out in the woods. I was in the safest place people can imagine, my own apartment, 4th floor, 2 locks, a door camera, and a neighborhood app the building encouraged everyone to use because community is safety. The app was called Neighborline. Everyone used it to complain about bikes in the hallway and missing parcels, and once in a while someone posted about a suspicious van and the comments would fill with, "Call the police," and, "Probably nothing." That night, a push notification popped up. Neighborline alert, Building 7. Security drill in progress. Please remain inside your unit until further notice. The message was pinned by an account labeled Property Safety Team with a blue checkmark. Blue checkmarks used to mean truth. Now they mean someone figured out how to get one. I frowned. Security drill? No one mentioned it. There'd been no email, no notice on the elevator screen. But I also knew how residents are. We miss things, we ignore things. I told myself I just missed it. A second notification followed immediately. Please do not call emergency services. Our team is on site. That line hit wrong. The whole point of a drill is that nothing is real, and the whole point of safety is that you can call for help if something becomes real. I opened the app and scanned the comments. There were already replies. Heard sirens outside? My hallway light is blinking. Someone knocked on my door and said, "Safety check." Is this legit? A user named Unit3C posted, "I called the concierge and it went to voicemail." Then my hallway light flickered through the frosted glass panel beside my door. 1 blink. 2 blinks. Then steady again. I stood up and went to the door. I didn't open it. I didn't look through the peephole. I just pressed my ear lightly against the wood. Silence. Then, softly, 3 knocks. Polite. Measured. The exact knock that says authority, not panic. A voice came through the door, muffled but clear enough to understand. "Safety team," it said. "We need a quick confirmation. Please open the door." My heart didn't race. It slowed. The part of my brain that does risk assessment started listing facts. This building doesn't have a safety team at night. The concierge isn't here. The property manager doesn't come after 6 p.m. And if this were real, they'd start in the lobby, not door by door. I didn't answer. My phone buzzed. Another Neighborline notification, this time a private message. From Property Safety Team. "We can see you are awake. Please cooperate so we can close the incident quickly." My skin tightened. I hadn't posted. I hadn't commented. I hadn't given the app permission to know whether I was awake. Unless awake meant something else. Unless they were watching my door camera feed. Or the hallway camera. Or a device inside my unit. The knocks came again, a little firmer. "Ma'am," the voice said, calm and almost apologetic. "Open the door. We're checking for a hazard." "What hazard?" I asked, keeping my voice level. A pause. Then, smoothly, gas. Gas was a perfect word. Invisible, scary, plausible, and it makes you feel stupid for hesitating. People open doors for gas leaks because the alternative is imagining an explosion. My phone buzzed again. Another private message. "Don't turn on lights. Don't use the elevator. Don't call anyone. Open the door." Too many don'ts. Too much control. Real safety instructions are specific and consistent. This was a script designed to funnel behavior. I stepped back from the door and went to my kitchen. I didn't turn on more lights. I didn't do anything loud. I just opened my settings and turned off my Wi-Fi. My phone switched to cellular. A second later, my building door camera chirped, a tiny sound from the hallway speaker. I hadn't triggered it. Then, from the door camera, a voice spoke, very close, like someone had leaned into the mic. You shouldn't have done that, it said. My stomach dropped. That voice wasn't muffled through the door anymore. It was digital, crisp, amplified by the camera speaker. Which meant whoever was outside, if anyone was outside, had access to the camera system. Or someone remote did. It felt like the building was talking. It wasn't. It was a person wearing the building like a mask. I grabbed my phone and called 911. It rang once. Then a recorded tone played, and the call ended. Not, no service. Not, busy. Ended. I tried again. Same result. My hands went cold. My apartment was in a good coverage area. Calls didn't fail like that twice. I opened the Neighborline app again and saw something new pinned at the top of the feed. Emergency services outage, do not call. The post was from Property Safety Team. My throat tightened. That wasn't just intimidation. That was preemptive narrative control. If calls fail, they want you to believe it's a general outage, not interference. I looked at my phone's signal bars. Full. I tried calling my friend Laura. The call connected immediately. So 911 wasn't out. Something was happening to my emergency calls. Or to my perception of them. I didn't waste time arguing with the feeling. I called Laura and said one sentence, fast. I think someone is trying to get into my apartment using fake safety alerts. Call the police to my address right now. What? Are you? She started. Do it, I said. Stay on the line. I heard her breathing change. She believed me. Okay, she said. Okay. I'm calling. While she called, I went into my bedroom and grabbed the one stupid, basic thing I owned for, just in case, a heavy flashlight. Not a weapon, but a tool that can blind and by seconds. The knocks stopped. That silence was worse than knocks. Because it meant they'd changed tactics. My phone buzzed again. Private message. Good. You contacted an outsider. That's a fail. Then, immediately. We'll adjust. The hallway light flickered again. 1 blink. 2. 3. Then my smart lock clicked. Not the bolt moving, just the internal relay sound, like a device receiving a command. My front door handle moved slightly, as if tested. I stared at it from across the living room. The deadbolt was engaged now. I had locked it after the first knocks, thank God. But a deadbolt only matters if the frame holds and the person on the other side doesn't have time. The door camera chirped again. Open the door, the voice said, less polite now. Or we'll open it for you. I heard something at the doorframe, a thin scraping sound like metal on metal. Someone was trying to slip the latch, or fit something into the strike plate. Tools. Human hands. I didn't scream. I didn't run to the door. I went to the balcony and cracked the sliding door just enough to get sound out. Then I yelled into the night, loud enough to be embarrassing. Call the police. Someone is breaking in. In the courtyard below, a few windows lit up. A balcony door opened across the way. Someone shouted back, what? Call the police. I yelled again. A moment later, I heard a sharp, fast retreat in the hallway, footsteps moving away from my door. The door camera chirped one more time, like a final breath. Good, the voice said softly. Now we know who yells. I stood there shaking, flashlight clenched, while Laura stayed on the line. They're sending officers, she said. Stay inside. I whispered. But they're in the building. The Neighborline feed was exploding now. Posts flying. Someone tried my door too. Is this real? My camera spoke to me. I can't call 911 either. I'm hearing knocks on multiple floors. It looked like mass panic. Then, suddenly, the feed locked. A banner appeared. Neighbor line is temporarily disabled for security reasons. And the app logged me out. That was the moment the story fully revealed itself. This wasn't one person trying one door. This was an operation using the app, the cameras, and the safety drill narrative to herd residents into predictable behavior. Stay inside, don't call, open the door for checks, follow instructions. And disabling the feed was how they removed witnesses from each other. Isolation, digitally. My door camera blinked, its tiny LED turned off, then on. Someone had taken control of that too, even with my Wi-Fi off. Many cameras run through building networks, not your private router. Convenience again. Access again. At 10:17, there was a heavy knock, different from the polite ones. Loud, authoritative, unmistakable. Police, a voice shouted. Open the door. Relief hit my body so hard my knees felt weak. I didn't open immediately. I asked, what's my unit number? A pause, then, 14B. Correct. I opened the door with the chain still on. Two uniformed officers stood in the hallway, faces serious. Behind them, the corridor looked normal, too normal. One officer said, "Are you alone?" "Yes," I whispered. "We've had multiple calls," he said. "Someone's been impersonating building safety and trying doors." The other officer glanced at my door camera. "Your camera's been accessed," she said, and her jaw tightened. "We've seen this pattern. They use the building's own systems to convince people they're helpless. It's not supernatural, just control." I nodded, throat tight. "The app logged me out," I said. "It said emergency services outage." The first officer's expression hardened. "We're contacting the property manager," he said. "And we're securing the comms room." Comms room. That's where the real building lives, the place with routers, access panels, CCTV recorders, and the keys to the smart part of your safety. They told me to pack a bag and stay with a friend for the night. As I shoved clothes into a backpack with shaking hands, the female officer stayed near my doorway, watching the hallway. She looked less like someone guarding me and more like someone guarding a leak in a dam. Before I left, she asked, "Do you know anyone who would target you specifically?" I shook my head. "No." She nodded. "Then it's not personal," she said. "It's selection. They're picking buildings with old access controls and high resident compliance. They see who opens the door, who calls, who yells." I swallowed. "Why?" The officer looked at my camera again, then at the frosted glass panel, then down the hall where the lights hummed like nothing had happened. "Because it's practice," she said. "Or because someone wants a specific resident and they're testing the whole floor to find an easy path." When I stepped into the hallway with my bag, I noticed something taped to the wall near the elevator, almost invisible unless you knew to look. A small printed sticker with a QR code and one line of text. "Safety drill check-in." Under it, a tiny arrow pointing toward the stairs. I stared at it. The officer followed my gaze and exhaled through her nose, angry. "They're still trying," she said. I didn't scan it. I didn't touch it. I walked past it and out into the cold, where the streetlights made everything look honest. Later, when the police searched the comms room, they found the simplest proof: not ghosts, not curses, just a laptop connected to the building network with a list of unit numbers and notes beside them. Opens on first knock. Refuses. Yells from balcony. Calls outsider. Has camera model X. High compliance likely. A human being had written those notes. A human being had sat in a room full of wires and decided how to manufacture fear in a building full of strangers. The reason it felt supernatural was because it was invisible and synchronized. But it wasn't beyond nature. It was beyond decency. And that's always worse. The first thing that made it feel like a haunting was the voice. Not what it said, how it sounded. It came through the intercom in my apartment at 11:18 p.m., smooth and close, like someone was leaning their mouth right against the microphone downstairs. "Good evening," the voice said. "This is building security. Please don't open your door." I sat up on the couch so fast my blanket slid to the floor. I lived alone in a mid-rise with a lobby desk that was only staffed during business hours. Building security at night was a phrase people used when they wanted you to stop thinking and start obeying. I didn't answer the intercom. A second later my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Stay inside. Do not look through the peephole." My throat went dry. I hadn't made a sound. I hadn't moved near the door yet. I forced myself to breathe slowly, then did the simplest, most human thing when fear tries to get clever. I checked reality. I opened my building's resident group chat. 23 members. Mostly complaints about packages and elevator smells. I typed, "Anyone else getting security messages right now?" Before I hit send, the intercom clicked again. "Ma'am," the voice said, patient now, almost kind. "We're handling an incident in the corridor. Please remain seated. We can see you." My skin tightened as if the air had turned cold. See me? From where? The only place with a view into my living room was the hallway window, if someone stood outside my door and looked through the narrow glass panel beside it. But the panel was frosted. You could see light shifts, not faces. Unless someone had something better than eyes. My phone buzzed again. "Don't message anyone." That was the moment the ghost feeling became something else, a human being reacting to my choices in real time. I didn't send the group chat message. Instead, I turned my phone on silent and stood up carefully, staying low. I moved toward the kitchen, where my apartment's smart hub sat on the counter, one of those small touchscreens that controlled lights and the building's smart entry system. When I got close, the screen woke up on its own. A notification was already open, as if someone had placed it there for me to read. Remote maintenance session active. Camera calibration, hallway. Hallway camera. I didn't have a hallway camera. But the building did. And if remote maintenance was active, someone had access to the system that controlled what was being recorded. The intercom clicked again, softer, as if the voice had moved closer to the panel downstairs. "You're doing fine," it said. "We're going to resolve this quietly." Quietly. That word always shows up when someone wants to use your instincts against you. Quietly means no witnesses. Quietly means no police. Quietly means you do not create a record. I stepped away from the hub and listened to the apartment. Nothing. No footsteps in the corridor. No elevator ding. No neighbor door opening. Just the low hum of the fridge and my own pulse. Then, very faint, a sound at my front door. Not knocking. A soft scrape, like a thin piece of plastic sliding between the door and the frame. My stomach dropped. Someone was trying to open my door. I backed into the kitchen and crouched behind the island, keeping my head below counter height. My hands were shaking, but my mind was suddenly painfully clear. I needed to call the police without using the obvious channels. If they had my phone number, they might have my account too. If they had remote maintenance, they might control the building's emergency line logs. If they wanted it to feel supernatural, they'd make it seem like every action I took was being anticipated. So I called 911 anyway. I didn't dial on speaker. I didn't talk loudly. I pressed the phone to my ear and kept my voice as small as possible. "Emergency services," a dispatcher answered. "What's your location?" I gave my address and unit number. "I think someone is trying to break into my apartment," I whispered. They're speaking through the intercom like they're security. I'm alone. Are you inside your unit? She asked. Yes, I said. Are the doors locked? She asked. Yes, I lied automatically, because my brain wanted the world to be simple. The scraping sound at the door became a soft click. My mouth went dry. The deadbolt hadn't been thrown. I always threw it. Always. But earlier, I'd brought in groceries. I remembered it now, my hands full, me nudging the door shut with my hip, telling myself I'd lock it in a minute. I never did. Ma'am, the dispatcher said, voice sharpening, I need you to move to a safe room and lock yourself inside if you can. Stay on the line. My bathroom locks, I whispered. Go there, she said. Quietly. As I crawled from behind the island, my phone buzzed against my palm. A new text. We heard you call. Hang up. My breath caught. They weren't guessing anymore. They were hearing. And then the worst detail arrived, the one that makes your brain reach for haunting, because it's easier than accepting the alternative. The dispatcher's voice came through my apartment speaker. Not my phone. My living room speaker, the smart one I used for music. Ma'am, are you still with me? It asked, amplified, echoing faintly off the walls. I froze. I hadn't put the call on speaker. I hadn't connected the speaker. Someone had routed my 911 call into my apartment. To make it loud. To make it panic-inducing. To make me feel like the house itself was betraying me. The intercom downstairs clicked in, overlapping with the dispatcher, creating a sick chorus of authority. Do not move, the intercom voice said, calm as ever. Stay where you are. The dispatcher, now audibly confused, repeated through the speaker, ma'am, I need you to confirm you are safe. My phone buzzed again. You like authority. So listen. Stay still. I forced myself to move again, fast now because stillness was what they wanted. I ran, quietly as you can run on carpet, into the bathroom and locked the door. I shoved a towel against the crack at the bottom like it could stop sound. The dispatcher was still talking, but her voice was still coming through the living room speaker, not my phone. Ma'am, I can hear another voice. Are there other people in your unit? I whispered into my phone, yes. Someone is inside. They're controlling my devices. The dispatcher's voice tightened. Officers are en route. Stay hidden. Do not confront anyone. A soft knock came at the bathroom door. Not a bang. Not urgent. Polite. Like a hotel staff member. A man's voice spoke through the wood, close and calm. I don't want to hurt you, he said. Open the door and we'll make this simple. My skin crawled. Because now the voice wasn't coming from the intercom or a speaker. It was inside my apartment. I stayed silent. He knocked again, a touch firmer. You can't hide from the building, he said, like he was making a joke. The building belongs to us. Another scrape sound, metal against the bathroom handle. He was trying to unlock it from outside with something thin. I backed up until my spine hit the bathtub and held my phone tight, praying the dispatcher could still hear me on the actual line. Then the man did something that made my stomach knot hard. He played a recording through my living room speaker. A child laughing. Soft. Happy. Out of place. Then a woman's voice, warm, familiar, said my name. Hey, the voice said. Open up. It's me. It sounded like my sister. It sounded exactly like her. My eyes stung. The man at the bathroom door said gently, we can make you hear anything. That's when I understood what the ghost theme was really for. They weren't trying to convince me it was supernatural because they believed in that. They were trying to make me doubt my senses long enough to obey. My phone buzzed one more time. This is a safety drill. Cooperate. And then, finally, another sound cut through everything. Heavy footsteps in the corridor outside my apartment, then a loud, unmistakable bang. "Police!" a voice shouted. "Open the door." The man at my bathroom door went perfectly still. I heard him breathe once, sharp. I heard a fast retreat, footsteps moving away from the bathroom toward the living room. Then the front door slammed. Not closed. Slammed open, like someone had forced it from the hall. More voices. Commands. A scuffle that lasted maybe 5 seconds, maybe 50. Time becomes useless when you're locked in a bathroom holding your breath. "Ma'am," an officer called from somewhere close. "If you're inside, announce yourself." "I'm in the bathroom." I shouted, voice breaking. "Stay there," he yelled back. "We're coming to you." The bathroom handle rattled, not the careful pick sound this time, but a hard, decisive turn. The door opened and an officer stood there, flashlight beam sweeping the room, gun lowered but ready. "You're safe," he said, and his eyes flicked over my face, reading how close I was to falling apart. "Did you see him?" I shook my head, shaking. "Did he say anything?" the officer asked. I swallowed hard. "He used the intercom," I whispered. "He used my speaker. He played my sister's voice." The officer's jaw tightened. "We've been seeing this," he said quietly. "They spoof voices. They hijack smart devices. They do it to make you freeze." "Who?" I managed. The officer glanced toward my living room, where another officer was pulling the power cable from my smart hub. "Someone who knows building systems," he said. "Someone with access." Then he added the line that turned my relief into a colder fear. "And someone who didn't come here to steal your TV." They found the entry point later, a small, maintenance booster box plugged into my router that I hadn't noticed because it looked like part of the setup. They found a fake contractor badge in the hallway stairwell, dropped during the escape. They found a printed sheet on my kitchen counter, placed there deliberately, titled "Resident Response Report." Under it were checkboxes like it was a survey. Resident called police, yes. Resident attempted neighbor contact, no. Resident complied with intercom instructions, partial. Time to lock down, 0:47. Smart speaker override, success. At the bottom, one line in neat text. Next unit, more compliant. That was the final twist. I hadn't been chosen because I was special. I'd been chosen because I lived alone in a building with a smart ecosystem that could be exploited. Because the building could be turned into a mouth, a set of eyes, a mechanism for testing human behavior. It only felt like a haunting because they wanted it to. Because haunting makes people tell themselves they're powerless. And the truth, human hands behind the voices, human planning behind the timing, is harder to live with. When the officers left, they told me to stay elsewhere for the night. I did. But as I stood in the hallway with my coat on, I looked back at my door and noticed something I'd missed earlier. A tiny piece of clear tape over the peephole, so thin you wouldn't see it unless the light hit it just right. Tape doesn't block a peephole. It holds something to it. A microlens. A pinhole camera. A way to see you without magic. I peeled the tape off and felt my hand start shaking again. Because the scariest part wasn't what they did. It was how close it came to working. How easily a voice in an intercom can become a command. How quickly your own apartment can be made to speak in someone else's language, until you almost answer back.